They kicked me out. Then I took everything back. My name is Emma, and when I was 26, my family decided I didn't belong in the empire I helped them build. They kicked me out. They thought they were locking a problem out of their perfect little kingdom. They didn't realize they were setting a storm free. My father, Thomas Hale, owned a mid-sized construction and development company. We weren't billionaires, but in our city, the name Hale and Sons Construction was on half the buildings downtown. Yes, Sons, not Hale and Family, not Hale Group, just Hale and Sons. The joke was cruel and simple. My father had one child. Me, no sons, just me. My father never treated me like a joke, though. He treated me like a protege. When I was 10, he took me to construction sites instead of the park. I learned what rebar was before I learned what contour was. When I was 15, I could read floor plans better than my math homework. By 19, I was shadowing him in meetings, watching him negotiate contracts that made or broke other people's careers. He would always say, "You've got the head for this, Em. I don't care if the sign says Sons. You're the one I trust." But I was not the only one with an interest in the company. My uncle, Richard, my father's younger brother, had been involved in the business for years. And by involved, I mean he showed up to take credit when things went well and disappeared when things got hard. He had one son, my cousin, Brandon. Now there was the golden child. Brandon had a degree in strategic leadership from some private university and an ego you could see from space. He wore expensive suits, never had mud on his shoes, and spoke like every sentence was being recorded for a TED Talk. "We need to modernize, Uncle Tom," he'd say, adjusting his watch. "We need to think more aggressively, pivot to high-value clients, reposition our brand." Half the time, he was just stringing buzzwords together. But my father was old-fashioned. He thought a degree and a confident walk meant something. Still, when it came to decisions, he listened to me. "Emma, what do you think?" he'd ask, even with Uncle Richard and Brandon right there. And I'd break down the numbers, the timelines, the risk. We had a good balance. My father knew people. I knew systems. Then, 2 years ago, he had a heart attack. He didn't survive it. 1 minute he was in his office drinking his third coffee of the day. The next, he was gone. Just like that, my world split apart in a single phone call. The funeral was a blur. Condolences, flowers, people telling me my father was a good man when most of them never understood him at all. What I didn't see clearly through the grief was the way my uncle and cousin started moving pieces into place around me. I saw it later. After the funeral, they called a family meeting in the conference room at the office. My father's chair at the head of the table was empty. Uncle Richard sat in it. That should have been the first sign. I sat in my usual spot beside the head, habit more than anything. Brandon sat opposite me, leaning back like a king waiting for his crown. Richard folded his hands. "Emma, you know your father loved you very much." I hated that sentence. It never ends well. He cleared his throat. "But love doesn't always mean he did what was best for the company." My nails dug into my palm under the table. "What are you talking about?" Brandon slid a folder toward me with a little smirk. "We've had the lawyers review the will and the company shares. There are some realities we need to acknowledge." I opened the folder, and I realized in seconds what they'd done. My father had left me 40% of the company. Richard had 30%. The remaining 30% was held in a trust that, under advisory council, meant Richard and Brandon had a say in how it was used for the long-term stability of Hale and Sons. On paper, I had the largest share. In reality, they had enough leverage to box me in. "We want what's best for you," Richard said, using that fake soothing tone. "And what's best for the company? You're grieving, you're young, this is a lot to handle." "I've been handling it," I snapped. "I ran the operations side with Dad for years." Brandon smiled, that condescending smile. "Sure, Em, you helped, But a company of this size requires real leadership, executive experience, external perspective. External, I echoed. You mean yours? He shrugged. I have the degree, the network, the vision. I looked at my uncle. And you? What do you have? Richard's eyes hardened for a second before he smoothed his face. Decades of loyalty to this company's name. My father's name, I thought. Not yours. Then Richard dropped the act. Here's what we're proposing. You step back. Take a generous buyout of some of your shares. Move into a, let's say, honorary role. Public-facing. We handle the day-to-day. No stress, no risk. You get income, your father's legacy is protected, and the professionals run the show. In other words, I said quietly, you want to push me out and take control. Brandon raised his hands. We prefer the term restructure. They were so sure I'd say yes. After all, I was just the grieving daughter. The girl, the emotional one. They didn't expect me to be my father's daughter. I pushed the folder back across the table. No. Richard blinked. Emma, don't be rash. I'm not being rash. I'm being clear. I know this company inside out. The crews trust me, the clients trust me, the vendors trust me. You don't push me to the side and call it protection. Brandon's jaw tightened. We're offering you security. I don't need security, I said. I need respect. That was the moment the warmth vanished from the room. They excused themselves. 2 weeks later, I was formally relieved of my duties as COO. The reason on paper? Irreconcilable differences in leadership vision. They took my key card. They told the staff I'd decided to pursue other things. They kicked me out of the company my father trained me to run. I still had shares, but without access, without votes they couldn't override. Those shares were just paper. On the day I cleared my office, Brandon stood in the doorway watching. Don't take it personally, he said. This is business. I didn't reply, because in my head, something very cold and very sharp had just clicked into place. The first month after they pushed me out was like grieving all over again. I had lost my father. Now I'd lost his legacy too. I rented a tiny office above a laundromat on the other side of town. The walls were thin. The paint was peeling in the hallway. You could hear the washing machines humming below. I put my father's framed photo on the cheap desk, opened my laptop, and stared at a blank spreadsheet. I had no job, no income yet, just experience, knowledge, and fury. I let myself break down once. I put my head on the desk and cried until my eyes burned. Then I got up, made coffee, and went to war quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, strategic. The first thing I did was call every foreman, site manager, and project lead I trusted from the old company. Not to poach them, not yet, just to ask questions. How are things going? How's Brandon handling the schedules? Are the suppliers happy? Turns out, no. Within 3 months of my exit, Hale & Sons was already showing cracks. Brandon was making big promises to clients with impossible deadlines. Richard was cutting costs in all the dumbest places to make the short-term numbers look good. They replaced quality materials with cheaper substitutes. They squeezed crews for overtime without paying fairly. Delays started stacking up. Subcontractors started grumbling. One afternoon, I met with Luis, one of the best project managers in the city. He used to say my father was the only reason he stayed loyal to Hale & Sons. Now he took off his hard hat, sat across from me in that tiny office and said, "They're running your father's name into the ground." "I know," I said softly. He studied me. "What are you planning, Emma?" I smiled faintly. "What makes you think I'm planning anything?" He chuckled. "Because you've got that same look your dad used to get whenever someone tried to screw him. The 'I'm going to fix this, but I'm not going to shout about it' look." I folded my hands. "Tell me something, Luis. If I started my own firm, smaller, more focused, with fair wages, quality work, honest timelines, would you work with me? He didn't even hesitate. In a heartbeat. That's when Hale and Daughters Developments was born. The name was deliberate. Not because I had a daughter, I didn't, not yet, but because I refused to live in a world where it was always "and sons." We built a firm that specialized in mid-sized projects the big players didn't care about, and the old company was too sloppy to handle well anymore. We paid fairly. We didn't overpromise. We delivered. Slowly at first. Painfully slowly. The first year, I barely paid myself. The second year, we broke even. The third year, we turned a profit big enough to make my accountant whistle when he saw the numbers. In those 3 years, I watched Hale & Sons stumble from a distance. They still had the name. They still had some big contracts. But reputation is a fragile thing. A client burned once remembers. A client burned twice talks. Then came the City Hall project, the bid that changed everything. We won, they lost. And when Brandon called, furious, I simply told him, "Maybe you should take a closer look at your books." Because I already had. They were drowning in debt. So I bought it, their headquarters, the building my father's name was on. 3 months later, they missed a payment. And I foreclosed. When Richard called, shouting, I said quietly, "You kicked me out. I'm just accepting that." 30 days later, the building was mine. They moved into a cheap office. Staff left. I didn't chase them. They came to me. When I walked through that glass building alone, the one they threw me out of, I touched my father's plaque and whispered, "Hi, Dad." Then I had the sign company remove "and Sons." Now it reads, Hale Construction, a division of Hale and Daughters Developments. Let people whisper. They thought they shut a door in my face. I bought the whole hallway. So, what do you think? If your own family pushed you out of the legacy you helped build, would you walk away and start fresh somewhere else? Or would you do what I did? Quietly grow stronger, wait for the right moment, and then take everything back? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Twisted Revenge Tales for more slow burn stories of karma, betrayal, and payback.